So the big question is this: how are real estate investors who don't have a ton of free time, don't have access to off-market deals, and didn't start life on third base, how do we grow a real estate business conservatively to support our families, finally leave the corporate rat race, and build a legacy? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. I'm Ed Matthews, and this is Real Estate Underground. This is the Real Estate Underground podcast, show number 84. Greetings and salutations, Real Estate Undergrounders. It's Ed Matthews again with the Real Estate Underground. I am really excited about this conversation, mainly because I'm a confessed real estate geek. So my kids think I'm actually a dork, which is kind of the next level, but they might be right. But the gentleman that we're interviewing today, Dorian Lam, he is the defender of the deal and someone that, I have been following for quite some time. And I thought that given his experience and his view across the marketplace, it would be invaluable to our audience to have a conversation with Mr. Lam and learn at the foot of the title master. How are you, sir? Nice. Welcome to the show.
I'm reacting to you calling me master. Thank you for that. And thank you for the introduction. I'm looking forward to being part of something underground.
Yes.
Back in the days of being underground meant something cool. Not to say that this isn't, but the underground is different for us now, and I'm happy to be part of some level of underground capacity.
Yeah, I like to think we're cool. Although, if like I referred to earlier, if you ask my teenager daughters, neither of them will tell you I'm cool. So, to each their own. So, Dorian, for those folks out there that, don't necessarily do business in the New York tri-state area and may not know who you are and what you do, why don't you step us through Cornerstone and how you got into this business and how we got to today?
Yeah. So my name is Dorian Lam, and I'm a born and raised New Yorker. I've been here all my life. And I went to NYU and came out as a management consultant and did some consulting work for the Big Four at the time, for Fortune 100 companies. And my journey into real estate, and even more specific, title insurance, was not planned at all. It was through acquisition. And it allowed me to consult in the title insurance space. And I had spent over a decade in the back office and had an opportunity later on in my career to learn the front office side of it and eventually become an owner of my own company, which is Cornerstone. So that's kind of how, I ended up where I am, because it's funny. I often get the story of when I start by saying I was a management consultant, they always immediately say, how did you end up in title insurance?
Right.
It was completely unplanned, but as I guess we'll dig deeper into later in our conversation, it's actually I've been very fortunate to be where I am now. It's one of the things that drives me, because at this point in my career, it really is about, being as optimal as possible and trying to, grow the business and grow our investment profile as well.
Yeah, excellent. And so, the thing that's interesting about, your operation and the way you approach it, and the fact that, fellow software and process consultant and sales guy and operations guy and all that, the idea that you would go from helping Fortune 100 companies to smooth their operations to, running your own business. It's all about business systems, right? And making sure that the value chain gets connected so that you can operate efficiently, right? So, as far as, but the thing about, your operation and the thing that I personally respect so much, is that, first off, you have a broad view into the marketplace. Like, I was talking with a gentleman who's starting a job at one of the really high end, lenders. And I said, one of the things that you have that I don't have is a view into the entire market, which I value as an investor, right? And, because that person and you see so many deals over the span of, a day, week, month, quarter, that I just don't see until they're already transacted at best, right? And so, that's one of the things that, we were talking before we got on, and it hadn't occurred to me that you are a genuine gold nugget resource in terms of picking up the phone and calling Dorian and saying, hey man, what are you seeing in the market lately? What's going on? Right?
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting, and we handle both residential closings and commercial closings. So we do have a nice reference as far as the type of deals that are closing, where they're closing, who's involved with them, what lenders are active, what lenders are not, the types of lenders that are now becoming prolific at any given point in time. Are they private lenders, are they regional banks, are they institutional lenders? And we also get a profile of the asset class that is closing more frequently, and even within that asset class. So if we talked about multifamily per se, saying things like we see a lot of student housing, we see some senior housing, or we're seeing a lot of luxury condos, so on and so forth. So yes to what you said, and in taking a step back, and again, consultant mind, what's the logic behind this? Was that, in a way, we're a hub to real estate closings. And what I mean by that is, we're one of the entities or parties that has the ability to interact with everyone that's involved in a closing. So whether it be the buyer, the seller, the lender counsel, the land use attorney, whoever it is that's involved in the transaction, we have a reason to at times reach out to them. For clearance matters, curative matters, for clarification on certain components. And when you take a step back and see it in that way, it wasn't obvious at the time, but it became obvious when we said, we actually have a lot of touch points. And, if we're paying attention, it's not just about giving an insurance product and providing title insurance. If there's a way we can contribute to either market intelligence or in some way provide content around that, then we will, and from that, open doors in a different way from us, where we not only just provide title insurance. Now, some of our operators have become friends. They started off as prospects, became clients, have become friends, and now we either spitball on ideas. We get the opportunity to invest in their deals. We get the opportunity to talk to folks like you about finding passive investors and connecting the dots to developers that are closing deals, right? Because that's what a title insurance company does at the end of the day. We actually see the owner, operator, sponsor sitting there signing the document, or now it happens in escrow, but we know who it is and that it's actually them. There's a level of verification and validity that we can offer to the process where, if somebody called me and said, hey, is Ed really the one closing the deals? I can say, yeah, I see a signature right here. I know Ed, we've been doing it for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Right. And he's returned money to investors all the time.
Yes. Good answer. It's
for the audience.
Thank you. And it's interesting though, because the other part of it is, from an operator perspective, from a attorney, law office perspective, even lenders, who's easy to work with, who's a little more difficult, who's, and, the ability to be able to go from customer, client to friend and be able to trusted advisor is really valuable to me, to be able to pick up the phone, pick your brain, or remember your team's brain and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think?
Stay with us. We'll be right back. A motivated seller just filled out your web form. If you call back within 5 minutes, you're nearly 4 times more likely to get that seller appointment. But delay your follow-up by even just 10 minutes? Forget it. You're toast. Ella Vista Connect calls that lead back in 60 seconds, qualifies them, and schedules your meeting. Find out how much slow follow-up is costing you. Free calculator at ellavista.com/underground.
You know this as well as anyone. There's the different, legal fees can accumulate pretty quickly, right?
Indeed.
Not to pick on attorneys here, but we have become a resource from that perspective as well, which is, look, I have a transactional real estate attorney, but I'm about to go into a joint venture with a church. Like, I need a referral here, and I don't want to pay whatever ex white shoe law firm, dollar. They're not institutional. They want to use somebody that we know that's in the industry that is more efficient from the perspective of being able to advise and consult them. And that's on the commercial side. And, access agreements, we get asked a lot. Condo documents, which attorneys are good for a certain scenario. And it also resonates on the residential side, where any of our friends, our own family will say, I don't have a real estate attorney. I'm about to, buy a piece of property. Do you have any referrals? And we've become a resource on that end too, because we're literally on an email chain or closing with other residential real estate attorneys that can speak to who's responsive, who's not, who doesn't cover a certain area, who does. The last thing you want to do is to use an attorney that, say, is very effective in New Jersey and have them close, something in New York, where the rules and the matters and the nuances can be different.
Two different
so that's where we can come help, where we kind of are really an advisor that, and we're not charging advising fees, right? We're a title company at the end of the day, but that we can be a resource to that.
Yeah. So tell me about, from an operational perspective, I former management consultant. So, obviously you're very systems oriented, and I'm curious about not only the systems that you've put in place over time to be able to operate, but, when you look at an operator, somebody like me or a similar firm, what are some of the systems that you see that make it a lot easier for us to be able to, someone like us to be able to close transactions working with, your firm and obviously the buyers or sellers? Yeah.
I don't know if there's a specific system that I can, cite here, but I think it's more of a philosophy, right?
Yeah. Best practices. That's what I'm talking about.
Where, one of the things that we are firm believers in is we hire by talent. And what I mean by that is, and I'll define that a little more, but
yeah, great.
What I mean by that is, for us, gone are the days of finding somebody that specifically fits perfectly into a certain role or mechanism or responsibility.
Right.
It's become now talent. And when I mean talent, what I mean is problem solving, the ability to kind of not only present the problem, but then actually go through the extra steps of saying, but we could do it this way.
Right.
And that's important for us, because as a whole, now this is, this could speak a little bit to system. My objective as a business owner is not to do everything. If I'm doing everything, then the program is wrong.
Right.
And I can't scale, right? I can't grow. So the idea is to empower those with talent, with problem solving ability, to give them the liberty to understand what we're trying to accomplish. So here's the mission. Here are the goals. I'm not going to pretend to know it the best. I know a way to do it, but I really want you here to figure out either, is this the best way? Is there a better way? Or are there things that can complement? Yeah. So, the old saying was, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
I don't subscribe to that.
Me neither.
What I subscribe to is that a process can always become better.
Absolutely.
Right. And times, technology, all of it changes. So if it works for us today perfectly, who's to say that in a year it can't work better? So that's the way that we hire, and that's the way we go about growing a company or growing anything that we're involved in. It's finding the talent, knowing that somebody's going to take the responsibility and that has the desire to, solve a problem.
Yep.
And then align it with the goals and the mission of what their primary objective is. Yeah. So again, I don't pretend to know it the best. I know a way to do it. I want to put people there to tell me the best way to do it.
Yeah, I'm very open with our team, and I've said this more than once on the air that, if I walk into a conference room or onto a Zoom call or something, and I'm the smartest person in that meeting, we're in a lot of trouble, right? It's a problem.
Right. I've said the same thing, Ed. So we're on the same page with that. You do not want me to be the smartest guy in the room.
No, if you're looking for me to figure everything out, we're going to have problems. So yeah, the same thing, right? Is, we are looking for people who understand, our vision in terms of what we're trying to accomplish for, our investors, our residents, and everybody in between. And, so somebody gave me some advice a while ago, and what they said was, you want to hire. So talent is really important, right? You want to hire passion players, not paycheck players, right? You want to hire people that buy into the vision of the business and will execute and help the business grow, evolve, change. Because, like you said, it's a dynamic environment. I mean, there's new best practices and technology and ways of doing things that, go on, retweet on Twitter and see all the guys out, all the people out there, throwing around ideas. It's mind boggling, how people operate. And, I look at a situation like that, and I'm always looking to pluck that little gold nugget and go, wow, we can apply that to our business. Right. And I want to, like you, I want to empower our team to do the same thing. Right.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be my way. It just we have to find the best way.
Right. Exactly. And if your task is so mundane and non-dynamic that it's the same every single time, then, we were kind of, kicking back and before we hit record on this, that technology is there, and ChatGPT is there to take it if it literally is the same ending all the time, right?
I'm in love.
So you have to evolve with that, and as a company that applies as well.
Yeah, I mean, we don't necessarily use ChatGPT to create content, for instance, but watch 2 weekends ago, watching the Celtics game it was the Celtics game. I updated all of our job descriptions, all of the checklists that, for the various processes. And because I've been trying to revamp our employee manual so that everybody, we bring everybody on the same page. And, on Monday morning during our team meeting, I'm passing them all out and saying, okay, tell me what I got right, fix what I got wrong. And if you have a better idea, incorporate it and let's talk. Right. And so they all scattered, and, they've been working on their various things, because I want to, one is that, I want to empower them and get their buy-in in terms of how they operate. But the other part of it is I'd like to take vacation every once in a while. And so, right. Even leave early on a Friday afternoon would be okay every once in a while. And, the fact is that if if you don't show up to work as the principal, right, or the founder, and everything stops, you don't have a business, right?
Right. So the idea here is not to control everything. The idea here is to get it to a point where you could set it and forget it, right, and trust those that you've put in place to do what they need to do,
and hire people that are better at those jobs than I am. Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, given your experience today, as well as, frankly, your management consulting experience, I'm sure you've had many mentors along the way. And so I'm curious, in terms of advice that you've received over the years, what is the best advice you've ever gotten? And, I'm curious who gave it to you.
Yeah, not to be corny here. But the best advice is to recognize that you need mentors and coaches, right?
Right.
You're spot on with regards to the fact that my journey still has mentors and has had mentors.
Sure.
So it was kind of phrased in a way where it's, think of any high performing person that in any capacity, and most people will name an athlete, but even if it's a famous celebrity on TV. The response to that is, do you realize how many coaches and advisors they have? Because the majority of them will have, on average, probably 10, right? Yeah. And the question comes back to me, it's how many do you have? And it's 0. So it's, think of it from that lens. Right. But I'm not going to use that as a cop-out to your question. The one thing that I would say that is has been extremely important and vital insight through my years now as a real estate investor, outside of the title company, but as a real estate investor and as somebody who contributes to capital raising and, helping people look at deals or find deals it's about the people, right? And you reach a point where it's not always about the deal, right? Because when I first started out, it was what had the highest returns, what to me was the greatest opportunity. Mm-hmm. And of course that's important, but you get to a point, and Ed, this, which is you're going to come to a point where you have 5 deals that are all great, right? And I reached a point where it was like, it's about the people. And what I mean by that is you're about to invest in them. You're about to partner with them. You're about to do something together. And real estate, as we all know, is not something that takes a day. It takes years, right? And you're about to get into a partnership, i.e. marriage, relationship with, said people. So there's something to be said about spending the time to understand, get to know, and build relationships.
Yeah.
So if I were to summarize that, it's, and you've heard this, I'm pretty sure, but people will take a good deal with great partners over a great deal with bad partners. Right?
100% of the time.
I see it all the time in title, which is we see deals that are being sold because the partnership just reached a point where they needed out, they wanted out, or there was some, separation or something that they just could not agree on, and they needed to sell the site or move on, or find an equity injection, or find some way to dissolve the partnerships. So that's one of the lessons I've learned, because at the end of the day, you representing many investors, and in some cases you being the investor, you want to know that, because real estate, another thing that we know that's a given, is that it's not always going to go according to plan.
It really does.
And when it doesn't go according to plan, is that individual going to really have your best interest in mind? Or are they really kind of set on some lavish lifestyle that they're trying to, maintain?
Right.
So, famously, one of the questions that I heard someone ask when they were seeking out partnership was, what kind of cars do you drive? Right. And look, not to hate on people with exotic cars, because that's great. Hey, I think exotic cars are great, but if you have 10 Lamborghinis in your garage, there could be some misalignment depending on the type of investor and person, of course, that you are. Right. But it's just an example of just getting to know people, to know that you're aligned, to know that when things go wrong, that person is going to be accountable for what they said.
Yeah. So for the record, I drive a Ford 2019 Ford Expedition with about 92,000 miles on it.
There you go.
Rid of it. I love it. So I hear you. It's interesting. The you use the marriage metaphor, and I 100% agree. Right. Anyone that I'm looking to do business with, we're going to date first, right? We're going to get to know each other because the fact is that every property, every project has a curveball, every single one of them, without a doubt, right? And you learn a lot. My grandfather always used to say, you learn a lot about people in 2 very specific situations. One, when there's a pile of money on the table, and the second one is when the stuff hits the fan, right? Yep. Everybody reverts back to who they are. And so if you have that understanding of, the person or the group sitting in front of me, we operate from the same value system. We're going to do the right thing, even if no one's paying attention. You got to know that before you go to the altar and trade your vows, right?
And my examples were kind of on the equity side. It trickles down to your lender as well on the debt, right? Because they're your partner in it. If you think about it, they're depending on leverage, they're your biggest investor. Yeah. So they're going to work with you if things don't go exactly according to plan, or they're going to give you a very hard time, right? So those are important matters. So the insight, through mentors and advisors and experience has been that it really is about the people. Right. Yep. Especially a time when everybody's trying to either work from home or, create this element where, you have a trusted, of your blockchain, so on and so forth. There's, roles for that. But in general, real estate is still a people-driven business, right?
Team sport.
It's a relationship-driven business. It still is. And even no matter how perfect the platform is, you still want to be able to be on the other side of that individual that you're about to give your hard-earned money to, or that a bank's about to give other people's money to.
Right.
So you have to be able to feel the energy. You have to feel get an idea of the type of person that they are.
So true. I agree. So, one of the theories that I have, and I try to test it with every person that I meet here on the show, is that leaders are readers. And so, you being the principal at your firm, me at mine, I know most of the principals that I've met over the years are voracious readers. And these days, it doesn't necessarily mean picking up a book, right? It doesn't have to be a tangible book, but it does, because it can be conferences, it can be YouTube videos, it can be podcasts that you listen to, it can be audiobooks or, real books. So I'm curious, about two things. One is, what are you paying attention to these days in terms of topics and types of information you're pulling in, and then specifically, who's the author or the creator behind it? Who are you paying attention to?
Yeah, so I'm a subscriber of all the mediums that you just described, right? Yeah. So I am old school in the sense that I do like to have physical copies, and for me, I guess it means I'm exercising my eyes and still, maintaining my literacy. Right. But I also do, during drives or walks or whatever it is, I'll ebook, I'll listen to podcasts, so on and so forth. So this is a loaded question. I feel like you could probably have a whole separate topic on this.
Sure can. Yeah.
I'm going to just go with what I'm consuming now in general. And one of the things that I'm very passionate about is wellness, right? And mm-hmm. I use the word wellness and not fitness because most of the time when I say fitness, people just associate it with physical fitness. Right. That's a component of it, but wellness also embodies mental fitness and a happy life, a happy balance, family, right. A happy company, happy employees. Yep. So I focus a lot on, or now at least, my content is in that area. So I'm a firm believer that if we're going to be good husbands, fathers, owners, investors, anything, that you have to be well in general. So anything that helps me figure out, understanding sleep better, understanding relationships better, understanding spirituality better, is what I'm consuming now. So I'll throw some names out there on the podcast front. Andrew Huberman is huge in the brain and the neurological space. Andy Galpin is a guy that's very physically oriented in terms of movement and biomechanics and what works and what doesn't from a physical fitness standpoint. But that's a part of my life. The other is obviously with regards to the mindset and the habits that help me maintain a level of productivity that I need to have in order to grow a business and grow investment and grow a family. Yep. But let's see, what comes to mind. Habits is a book written by James Clear, Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits, yeah.
That's great because it does break down things into not even bite-sized, but kind of nano-sized, nano-sized type of
consumable things, right?
To start programming in. Right. And not think of it as I need to be able to read 100 words per minute tomorrow. There's always a starting point, and then recognizing that it's about the repetition. But other authors that I follow from the business front are, Dale Carnegie is a famous one in terms of how to influence people, and then. Or that may be Robert Cialdini. I'm sorry. Dale Carnegie did How to Win Friends
and Influence People. That's friends. Right. Yeah. Influence was the other book you were referring to. Right?
Robert Cialdini is Influence. So he's another. So I'm into the psychology of businesses as well, right? So Seth Godin is somebody I follow. But like I said, I'm a bit scatterbrained on this because I feel like we could be and talk about this on end. But you're right. I've been encouraged to read. I try my best to read as much as possible, but I wish I could read more.
Yeah, well,
one of the things that somebody said to me is the answers are out there. You just got to read it.
Right. And yeah, that's exactly right. And, but the other part of it is that, and you alluded to it earlier, is that, the life balance, right? So, I'm curious, when you're not investing in real estate or running your title company, what do you like to do in your private time? How do you spend your time away from the industry?
So if it's not family,
family's fine.
I am, I did use the word wellness intentionally, but I am into physical fitness. So I'm usually, there's some event that I'm getting ready for, whether it be a triathlon or a CrossFit event or some of the other fitness things that are out there. It just keeps me very focused, and it helps with decision-making with regards to where I'm spending my time.
Right on.
So if I feel there may not be value in something that's being proposed to me, I quite honestly would say I'm just going to sleep, because sleep's an important thing for us, right? Yeah. In order to take on the next day. Right. So that's what I do if it's not family. But I have 2 young kids, so our weekends and our off time are pretty filled. Yeah,
I can only imagine. I have teenagers, and my uncle asked me once, well, what are your hobbies? And I said, your nieces. Those are my hobbies. I do what they need me to do.
It's mentoring them.
Right, exactly. Or, ride to the swim meet or softball game or soccer game or dance practice or whatever, right?
Uber.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a professional Uber, although I don't get paid for it. So Dorian, hey, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I appreciate your insights. Thank you very much. If people want to learn more about you or your company, what's the best way for them to reach out and get in touch?
Yeah, the easiest way is over the internet. My company, Cornerstone, is cornerstonelandabstract.com. My personal brand, I'm known as the Defender of the Deal. So if you typed in defenderofthedeal.com, you'll see all the information about me. And that'll lead you to all the Instagram, LinkedIn, and the blog newsletter that we have on both fronts. You also have an excellent white paper on your site. When I was preparing for this conversation, we should probably mention that was outstanding. That's right. Thanks, Ed, for bringing that up, and thanks for the kind words on that. But you can go to defenderofthedeal.com and pull my white paper down on there, specifically on how to use title insurance as a tool in your belt, whether you're an investor, or whether you're going to purchase your own property.
Right on. Well, Dorian, thank you so much for your time today and all your experience and wisdom. I'm grateful, and it's good to see you, my friend.
Thank you, Ed, for bringing back the underground.
Yeah, no problem. All right. One show at a time. This has been the Real Estate Underground podcast, a Clark Street Capital presentation. Thanks for joining us. If you're enjoying the show, please remember to subscribe and share it with your friends. If you'd like to learn more about Clark Street Capital and our upcoming projects, please join our investor club at clarkst.com/join. Until next time, happy investing. This has been the Real Estate Underground. Don't forget to subscribe. It helps us grow. Until next time, Undergrounders, remember your real estate journey begins with a simple step forward. Now get to it. Bye for now.